Basically, everything you have ever been taught about the fundamental rules of human existence is, well, completely backwards.
Right, like the ground rules we all just accept.
Exactly. I mean, we are told literally from the moment we can understand language that aging and death are unalterable biological rules. Like they are the ultimate unavoidable finish lines, you know?
Yeah, death and taxes, right. It's just a given.
But what if they aren't? What if aging and death are actually just staged situations?
Saged, that's a strong word.
It is. What if death is really nothing more than an emergency escape hatch that we've been forced to use simply because we've made living so miserable?
I mean, that demands a massive paradigm shift right out of the gate. You have to completely let go of the comforting, accepted timeline of a human life.
Yeah, the whole dust to dust thing.
Exactly. We are entirely conditioned by that idea of a natural cycle. So questioning that fundamental rhythm feels pretty disorienting. Like every piece of our culture, from inheritance laws to bucket lists, is built on the premise of an 80-year deadline.
Which brings us to our deep dive for today. We are looking at a really fascinating collection of writings and manifestos from a movement and worldview known as the infinity symbol.
And you can find this material on a platform called religion.global, right?
Yes, exactly. And it flips traditional theology entirely on its head. Because for centuries, a lot of belief systems have taught that you basically endure the suffering of this physical life in order to earn a place in a paradise in some world beyond.
Right. The reward comes later.
But this worldview advocates for the exact opposite. It argues for achieving what they call eternity on earth through absolute, unbreakable human unity.
The overarching goal of this material is to forcibly shift humanity's focus away from waiting for an afterlife. It wants us actively preserving our species here and now in this physical realm.
So as you listen today, we want to invite you to just step into the logic of this framework. It paints this wild picture of a world where humanity itself is immortality.
But I guess before we can really talk about living forever, we have to look at how this source material redefines death itself.
Oh, for sure. The core premise in these texts is that God did not create humans to be naturally mortal.
Which is a huge claim.
Massive. The text explicitly says, and I'm quoting here, God did not make us mortal and gave us death as an escape from inhuman suffering.
That single sentence essentially re-engineers the entire human narrative.
How so? I mean, unpack that a bit.
Well, historically, death is viewed either as the punishment for original sin in a theological sense, or just the biological tax we pay for cellular degradation, right?
Yeah, just cells breaking down over time.
But here, death is framed as a mercy. It's a release valve.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy because it makes me think of the emergency exit doors on an airplane.
Oh, I like that.
Right, like you watch the safety briefing, the flight attendants point out the exits over the wings, but you are only supposed to use that escape hatch if the cabin is actually on fire or, plummet toward the ground.
And the argument this text makes is that humanity constantly wages war. We are perpetually fighting, hoarding resources, and just making life utterly unbearable for one another.
So because the cabin is always on fire, we keep having to use the escape hatch. We keep having to die to get away from it.
Right. The internal logic dictates that if we put the fire out, if we stop making life a miserable zero-sum game, we wouldn't need to pull the emergency exit.
We could just stay on the plane.
Exactly. Which explains why the author refers to aging and death as staged situations.
Yeah.
That's a very specific, deliberate, semantic choice.
Staged, meaning artificial.
Yeah, staged implies artificiality. It implies we only consider these processes natural because we currently feel utterly powerless to change the conditions that trigger them.
Wow.
It's a profound psychological and moral shift. Death is taken out of the realm of tragic, divine inevitability and placed squarely in the realm of human responsibility.
So mortality basically becomes a symptom of our collective failure to care for one another. I mean, that completely changes how we justify our own inaction. Like, for you listening right now, think about how often you have heard someone dismiss a massive systemic problem or ignore a global conflict by just shrugging and saying, well, life is short.
Yeah, we totally use our own mortality as an excuse for our apathy.
Right. But if we view aging as a solvable error born of our own cruelty rather than an unbreakable natural law, our priorities as a species would have to change overnight.
And the text states this clearly. It says, preserving our species should be our commandment. Because if you strip away the escape hatch, you are forced to figure the room you are sitting in.
You can no longer just wait out the clock and hope for a better situation in the next life.
Exactly. You have to clean up the mess here.
Okay, so if we do that, right, if we stop pulling the escape hatch, put out the fire, and actually choose to stay alive, what actually happens to the physical body?
That leads to some of the most fascinating parts of the source material.
Yeah, because it has this highly speculative vision of physical regeneration. It boldly claims, quote, the body regenerates itself, end quote. And it asks, what happens when we give our bodies the time of eternity?
Which diverges so sharply from typical modern transhumanism.
Oh, entirely. When we talk about living forever in tech circles today, the conversation immediately goes to like uploading your consciousness to a server somewhere.
Or replacing failing biological organs with synthetic machinery. Silicon Valley style immortality.
Exactly. But this material looks at immortality as unlocking undiscovered miracles of God's creation that are already built into our biological blueprints.
Right, it's organic, it's already in us.
And the text actually lays out a timeline of what might happen if we just stay alive long enough. It's wild. It suggests that around 300 years, you might grow entirely new teeth.
Like a third set of teeth.
Yeah. And at 400 years, new hair. At 600 years, old tendons might detach and regenerate.
It just keeps going.
It does. It goes further, suggesting maybe a sixth finger grows on our hands, or, and here's where it gets really interesting, even wings after 900 years.
The idea being that our genetic code has blueprints for centuries of development that we simply never trigger because we die way too soon.
Now, I am struggling with the wings, I have to be honest. It sounds like we wandered straight into a fantasy novel.
It does sound extreme at first glance.
Right. I mean, I can follow the logic of cellular regeneration, sure, but spontaneous wings after 9 centuries just feels disconnected from human biology.
Well, you have to look at it through the lens of dormant potential. In biology, we know that environmental stressors turn certain genes on or off, right? Epigenetics.
Sure, environmental triggers.
The text is basically taking that concept to a radical philosophical extreme. It's positing that our bodies are currently locked in this short-term survival mode.
Okay, so think of the human body like a massive, complex video game or a piece of really sophisticated software.
Okay, I'm with you.
Imagine a game where absolutely no player has ever survived past level 100. Everyone gets a game over screen before they hit that mark.
So we have absolutely no idea what hidden code or map expansions unlock at level 300 or level 900.
Exactly. The code could be sitting right there on the disk. We just haven't survived long enough to trigger the next phase of physical evolution.
That's a great way to put it. And, why would a creator put code in there that we never reach? What's the point of a 900-year evolution if humanity keeps dying at 80?
Right. It feels like a waste of the software.
And that's why the text frames reaching these levels as a profound spiritual responsibility. It says, quote, "It is our responsibility before our own conscience to stay alive. Only in this way can we reach these undiscovered stages of our physical evolution and bear witness to the true miracles of God inherently laid out within us."
Wow. Bear witness to the true miracles of God. That turns staying alive into a divine exploration.
Exactly. It transforms the act of survival from just a base biological instinct into a sacred duty. You aren't just existing. You are actively revealing the Creator's hidden masterpiece.
So if you die at 80, you are leaving the vast majority of the gift unopened.
Yeah, that's exactly the argument.
Staying alive is an act of worship, just bearing witness to what we are actually capable of.
But, and this is the catch, to reach level 900, to grow those wings or uncover whatever that dormant code actually is, we first have to survive today.
Right, which we are not doing a great job at. The text points out that right now, humanity possesses the technological power to completely destroy itself. Like, we've reached a critical threshold with nuclear weapons and climate change.
So to navigate this survival threshold, the author introduces a central guiding metaphor, and it's the V formation of geese.
I love this part.
The text explicitly says, to achieve our great goals, we must take inspiration from the V formation of geese.
Yeah, because when geese fly together in that V shape, they literally share the burden of the headwind. They communicate constantly by honking to keep the flock aligned.
Right, they're constantly encouraging each other.
And when the goose at the very front, the one taking the brutal brunt of the wind resistance, gets physically exhausted, it just drops back into the slipstream of the formation. And another bird immediately moves up to take the lead. They never leave anyone behind.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, To fly like that, to seamlessly rotate leadership and trust that the flock will catch you when you are exhausted, requires an unshakable foundation of trust.
And absolute trust, yeah.
So the text pivots from the geese to ask one of the most poignant questions in the entire material. It asks, who does it serve when a generation dies and the next generation repeats its mistakes?
Man, it serves absolutely no one. It's a localized tragedy that just scales up to a global catastrophe.
Exactly. By allowing generations to constantly die out, we are constantly resetting our collective wisdom. We literally break the chain of the V formation.
The old generation dies, taking their hard-earned, visceral lessons about the horrors of war with them into the grave.
Right. Then a new generation is born, and they have to learn those exact same painful lessons from scratch, usually by initiating the exact same types of conflicts.
You see this in historical cycles all the time.
Yeah.
The generation that fights a massive global war swears they will never let it happen again.
Never again, right?
But then 3 generations later, the grandchildren are so removed from the physical reality of that horror that they just start rattling sabers again.
And that's why, when the text says humanity is immortality, it is demanding that we act as one continuous, unbroken chain of consciousness and memory. We cannot maintain a global V formation if the flock keeps resetting and forgetting how to fly.
The tragedy highlighted in the text is that we have been waging war since humanity became mortal, and we don't even know who we are fighting against. We're ultimately just fighting ourselves.
It's all friendly fire in the grand scheme of things.
It really is. I mean, for you listening, imagine applying the mechanics of those geese to global geopolitics, a model of continuous shared leadership.
What would that look like in practice?
Well, imagine a nation willingly taking the burden of the headwind for a neighboring country when they're economically or socially struggling, and doing it knowing with absolute certainty that the neighboring country will take the lead when the roles are reversed.
It's beautiful, but it requires returning to what the text calls our common denominator, which is the shared desire for eternity on earth. The author states, so far, no empire has managed to bring us eternity, but perhaps all peoples and nations together can.
And they actually extend an open invitation to America in particular, right?
Yeah, they cite it as a young pioneering nation, asking it to use its massive platform to cultivate these spiritual insights and help define this cooperative future.
But here's the thing. Coordinating a literal global V formation of 8 billion distinct humans is vastly different than a flock of a dozen birds.
Well, undeniably, we are a messy species.
Very messy. We are a massive, noisy, ideological species. So how does the worldview actually propose we do this without immediately descending back into the friction that starts the fires in the first place?
Well, the worldview offers a surprisingly modern digital mechanism for this age-old problem of human friction. They introduce a web presence called universe.sbs.
Universe.sbs. And the SBS stands for both side-by-side and special business solution, right?
Correct. The text describes these as practical tools for digitalization and virtualization.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Because there is a real paradox here that I'm tripping over.
What's the paradox?
Well, the author writes, to cultivate the necessary trust, a certain degree of distance is also essential. And they claim we establish this healthy distance through virtualization.
Right.
But I look at our current digital spaces, and distance seems to breed alienation and hostility, not trust. Like, trust is usually built face-to-face, shaking hands, sharing a meal. How does keeping our distance through a screen build the kind of trust needed to cure immortality?
This raises an important question, but it requires looking at the psychology of physical proximity. In a crowded, high-friction physical world, proximity often triggers our most base survival instincts.
Like fighting over territory.
Exactly. Resources are scarce, physical borders are tight, and a misstep can lead to immediate physical violence. Physical closeness, when combined with scarcity, breeds tribalism and defensive aggression.
Okay. So if you are face to face with a perceived enemy, your nervous system is literally preparing for a fight, which makes genuine diplomacy nearly impossible.
Yes. Virtualization, when designed properly, can strip away the immediate biological threat. By utilizing a specific digital platform like universe.sbs, you create a neutral, borderless space for genuine dialogue and peaceful diplomacy. The digital space acts as a buffer. It cools down the physical friction.
It's important to note how this platform differs from the internet we use today, though, because current social media algorithms are designed to maximize engagement through outrage, which honestly just digitizes our tribal warfare.
Yeah, it amplifies the fire instead of putting it out.
Right. But this project explicitly notes it is not a pursuit for wealth or attention. The sole overriding pursuit is the preservation of the species. It is a digital space engineered strictly for survival diplomacy, allowing us to work side by side without triggering our physical territorial instincts.
And this pursuit of eternity is actually not even restricted to Earth.
Oh, this part is amazing.
It is. The invitation is explicitly extended to extraterrestrial life. The text explains that universe.sbsas is built with the high probability of alien life in mind.
They write, quote, should that be the case, we wish to convey our shared values to them as well and invite them with open arms to join us.
A literal universal V formation.
It's so cool. It proves how non-exclusive this worldview is. They emphasize that they hold no copyrights, that all this content is free and should be distributed without restriction.
Anyone can join the flock.
Exactly. But as visionary as all of this is, I mean, growing wings, achieving physical immortality, building digital trust platforms, inviting aliens, I have to look at the immediate reality for a second. What if we commit to this, we stop fighting, we put out the fire, but someone still gets eternal illness tomorrow? What happens to the people who try but still have to use the escape hatch?
That's a very fair question, and the author actually provides a very pragmatic theological safety net outlined in a section called The Options.
The options.
Well, there are three distinct paths presented there. They all share a core message of grace. The text states that while the ultimate primary goal is physical eternity here and now, we do not have to live in terror of failure, nor do we radically reject the concept of a world beyond.
So if this current generation doesn't crack the code on physical immortality, God's love is still boundless.
Exactly. The text reassures the reader that God does not exclude us for failing to reach level 900. A continuing existence after death is still prepared for us.
That's a huge relief. It removes the anxiety from the mission. It basically says, aim for eternity on Earth, but if you fall short, traditional grace still catches you.
It's a very balanced approach.
And that grace is actually mirrored in a very grounding, almost charming disclaimer from the author, who signs off the material as Marius Mihail, or CEO at Archangel.company.
That disclaimer is honestly the key to understanding the entire tone of the movement.
He writes, quote, to remain completely transparent and clear up any misunderstandings, I'm human and do not consider myself Archangel Michael.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because in a world where visionary or radical movements almost always end up elevating a single charismatic founder to godlike status, he stops that dynamic before it can even start.
Right, in its tracks.
He makes it abundantly clear this is not about elevating him as an individual.
Right, because a leader who secretly believes they are divine will never willingly drop to the back of the flock to let someone else take the headwind.
Exactly. The V formation fundamentally relies on the equality of the geese. By immediately grounding himself as a flawed, mortal human, the author is practicing the exact shared leadership he is preaching.
So we have journeyed through a philosophy today that challenges the very foundation of human biology and theology. Looking at death not as a natural law, but as an unnecessary escape hatch from a burning room of our own making.
We've explored the untapped potential of our physical bodies and that radical idea that we might evolve over centuries to see undiscovered miracles if we just give ourselves the time to live.
And of course, the urgent call to organize humanity into a V formation, leaving no one behind, all coordinated through the healthy distance of digital diplomacy.
I think the true value of this material lies in its utility today.
Yeah.
Regardless of your personal beliefs regarding dormant genetic code or the literal possibility of physical immortality, the core concepts here are incredibly powerful tools for critical thinking.
Absolutely.
Demanding continuous shared leadership, rethinking the naturalness of human suffering, and creating systems that preserve generational wisdom rather than erasing it through conflict. These are frameworks that can fundamentally alter how we navigate the world, even while we are still mortal.
It definitely forces you to look at your immediate reality differently. And with that in mind, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought experiment to mull over as you go about your day.
I love a good thought experiment.
Right. So imagine if you truly, deeply internalized the core premise of this worldview. Imagine you knew, as an absolute fact, that you are going to inhabit this exact same physical earth for the next 1,000 years.
Okay.
And not just you. Imagine that the people you fundamentally disagree with today, your ideological rivals, the people across the border, your fiercest enemies, would still be sitting right next to you a century from now.
No escape hatch.
Exactly. There is no escape hatch for you, and there is no escape hatch for them. Neither of you gets to leave the room. How would that instantly change the way you resolve a conflict tomorrow morning?
That changes everything.
It really does. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking the big questions and keep questioning the blueprints of reality. I want you to imagine, just for a second, that basically everything you have ever been taught about the fundamental rules of human existence is, well, completely backwards.
Right, like the ground rules we all just accept.
Exactly. I mean, we are told literally from the moment we can understand language that aging and death are unalterable biological rules. Like they are the ultimate unavoidable finish lines, you know?
Yeah, death and taxes, right. That's just a given.
But what if they aren't? What if aging and death are actually just staged situations?
Saged, that's a strong word.
It is. What if death is really nothing more than an emergency escape hatch that we've been forced to use simply because we've made living so miserable?
I mean, that demands a massive paradigm shift right out of the gate. You have to completely let go of the comforting, accepted timeline of a human life.
Yeah, the whole dust to dust thing.
Exactly. We are entirely conditioned by that idea of a natural cycle. So questioning that fundamental rhythm feels pretty disorienting. Like every piece of our culture, from inheritance laws to bucket lists, is built on the premise of an 80-year deadline.
Which brings us to our deep dive for today. We are looking at a really fascinating collection of writings and manifestos from a movement and worldview known as the infinity symbol.
And you can find this material on a platform called religion.global, right?
Yes, exactly. And it flips traditional theology